Hello, everyone. Hello. This is Alexandra Levine live with the America's Pulse Network. I hope everybody had a happy Mother's Day. Breaking news, everybody. Breaking news. As you know, President Trump is in Saudi Arabia on his Middle Eastern tour. Then he goes to Qatar. And live today, President Trump just announced he'll be lifting U.S. sanctions on Syria to, quote, give them a chance at greatness. This is extremely historic. The Syrian leader is set to travel to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to meet with President Trump tomorrow. President Trump and the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman signed a series of executive orders and agreements today on energy, defense, and other areas. The big one today was a $600 billion investment into America. This is huge. And the only person who can do it and get it done is President Trump. As you know, President Trump went to Saudi Arabia on his first term in 2017, and he had a great relationship with the Saudi prince. And he has an even better relationship now with the Saudi prince, because everybody knows that we can't mess around, that the foreign countries cannot mess around with America anymore, because now we have President Trump back into the White House. And we'll talk about this later in the segment, but President Trump has a very strong relationship with Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu. There's been a lot of rumors going around that there's tension between the two. That is fake news. Again, we are not the mainstream media. We are not fake news. We will not report fake news. The Prime Minister of Israel and President Trump still have a great relationship, have always had a great relationship. We're building actually a stronger relationship with our biggest ally, Israel. And that's why it was so important for President Trump to be in Saudi Arabia today, to go to Qatar. He'll be talking with the president of Turkey, Erdogan, to bring peace back into the Middle East. The real crux of why President Trump is over in the Middle East is President Trump is going to negotiate with the Arab world to form a Middle East NATO alliance, and Iran will not have any power over them. They will prosper and normalize trade with Israel, and Israel will become a superpower. That is the crux of why he is going over there. And again, we'll get into later in the program about President Trump with the plane from Qatar and so forth. Again, there's been a lot of fake news from the Jerusalem Post, the Times of Israel, from Haaretz, from a lot of these different news outlets, again, from MSDNC, we call it, CNN, ABC, and all of these fake news media outlets, even the huge rhino media outlets such as Politico, NPR, PBS, etc., that are blatantly just lying about the relationship between President Trump and Israel, and they're lying about the relationship with the president and Qatar and so forth. So it's very, very important that we really pay close attention to the things that President Trump is saying. The speech that he gave in front of or in the palace with Saudi Arabia and so forth, and with our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Also, Pete Hegseth is over there. Steve Witkoff is over there. Howard Lutnick is over there. All of our cabinet, the majority of our cabinet members, the heads of our cabinet members are over there. I mean, these are really crucial times right now. And President Trump is smart. He knows what to say and he knows what to do. He's a master negotiator. As you know, he has a bunch of hotels and golf, not lawns, but oh my God, why am I blanking on this? He's got a bunch of resorts, there we go, that he plays golf in all over the country and the world, but the world is very important. So President Trump, as I said, is a master negotiator. He has worked with Saudi Arabia. He has worked with all these foreign leaders, all these foreign countries for many years. He knows what he's doing. Again, I say to my audience, trust the process. Do not start to just pounce on the propaganda. And I can tell you, the propaganda, unfortunately, is winning this week. A lot of people, even hardcore Trump supporters, have actually believed in a lot of the propaganda. And again, we will cover that later in the show about how we have to be very careful what we read, what we hear before we hear it from the president's mouth, what we see. Again, President Trump has said that he will stand with Israel. He will support Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that President Trump is our biggest friend and ally to Israel. Again, trust the process. If it doesn't come out of President Trump's mouth, you don't believe it. And President Trump has actually debunked a lot of the propaganda that has been out there. But this is so important that we, hardcore Trump supporters, do not fall in line or fall for the propaganda. So I always say to my viewers, step back for a minute. Let's take a breather. Let's really just divulge. Let's peel the onion first before we jump to conclusions. We jump ahead before we diss Pam Bondi, before we diss Kash Patel, before we diss any of President Trump's cabinet members. We have to really just do our research and do our due diligence before we just jump on and say, I can't believe President Trump did this. I can't believe President Trump said that. I can't believe this. I can't believe that. Just put on the brakes. Put on the brakes. And now this leads into our first segment. Our first segment is very important. It goes into the wonderful deals that President Trump has done throughout the week before he got to the Middle East. So we'll put up the first slide, segment 1. This is at Real Donald Trump. He's on Truth Social. He's saying, there we go, a very good meeting today with China in Switzerland. Many things discussed, much agreed to, a total reset negotiated in a friendly but constructive manner. We want to see for the good of both China and the U.S. an opening up of China to American business. Great progress made. As you know, the Chinese under Joe Biden was invading our farmland. The Chinese were actually owning our farmland. I have issues in Florida with the Commissioner of Agriculture. He wants to have illegals work in the farms because it's cheap labor. And my governor, Ron DeSantis, says, no, buy American, hire American. Why do we have illegals working in the farms? No, these are jobs for Americans, for real Americans, real farmers. When you put illegals working in your farmland, it actually ruins your crops. It ruins everything. We have some great American farmers that know what they're doing, and they need to be hired. And again, President Trump is putting China on check, saying, you're not going to own our American farmland anymore. And if you continue to screw us, we're just going to tax the hell out of you with tariffs. And President Trump is winning. He's winning the war on tariffs. He really is. And then what else is President Trump working on? He's working on negotiating a ceasefire peace agreement between Vladimir Putin and Zelensky. He wants to end the war in Ukraine and Russia for good. And my friend Ryan Fourier will put up slide number 2. He says, breaking. Putin offers to start negotiating with Ukraine this Thursday. Trump did the impossible. Give Donald Trump a Nobel Peace Prize. This is a massive win. As you know, Vladimir Zelensky came into the Oval Office. He acted like a know-it-all. President Trump said, you don't have the cards. You need to listen to us. We're trying to help you. You don't have the cards. And then President Trump, he went to see, or he actually went to talk with Macron and with Zelensky during the funeral of the Pope. And they talked. And now they're talking because Zelensky knows that if he doesn't play ball with America, America is not going to help him. America is not going to, allow Zelensky to call the shots here. And Trump has said to Zelensky, we're not giving you any more money. We give you $350 billion. It's not our fault you lost it. You can't keep coming to our country and asking and then saying that we don't care about you or saying we haven't given you enough money. BS. And the guy doesn't even come to the White House wearing a suit. I mean, the guy is completely disrespectful to the president and to the Oval Office. But finally, Zelensky has said, I'll come to the table with Putin. I'll try to negotiate a ceasefire. We'll, stop the war. We'll try to stop the war. I don't really trust Zelensky very much. A lot of people don't. He's a warmonger. He just wants to continue having this war because it's bad for business if he doesn't. And he's got, George Soros in his ear telling him what to do. Remember, Zelensky's just a puppet. George Soros is the puppet master. And then we have at Real Donald Trump. He puts on True Social again about Russia and Ukraine. He says, President Putin of Russia, we'll put up slide 3. President Putin of Russia doesn't want to have a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine, but rather wants to meet on Thursday in Turkey to negotiate a possible end to the bloodbath. Ukraine should agree to this immediately. At least they will be able to determine whether or not a deal is possible. And if it is not, European leaders in the U.S. will know where everything stands and can proceed accordingly. I'm starting to doubt that Ukraine will make a deal with Putin, who's too busy celebrating the victory of World War II, which could not have been won, not even close, without the United States of America. Have the meeting now. And as I said earlier in breaking news, President Trump is the only one that can really sit down with the president of Turkey, Erdogan. Erdogan has a huge army. The Turkish army is one of the strongest armies in the world. And as you know, President Trump is in the Middle East right now, working this peace agreement. He wants to stop the killing. He wants to stop the terrorists from invading. He wants to stop the terrorists from being on the uprise. As you know, under Obama and Biden, Obama opened up the vacuum to the Arab Spring. He opened up ISIL, and he made the Taliban on the uprise. These are terrorist organizations, and President Trump is trying to come to a consensus to stop to stop the killing, to stop these terrorists from taking power. That's why he attacked the Houthis. That's why he's allowing Israel to do what they have to do to completely demolish Hamas once and for all, to completely demolish Hezbollah and the Islamic Jihad. He wants us to completely demolish the Taliban and ISIS and Al-Qaeda once and for all. I mean, this is really important that these terrorist organizations get demolished and these terrorists get demolished, and that there is an uprising in these countries to overturn these terrorist organizations like they did in Egypt. First, they had the uprising of the Muslim Brotherhood under Obama, and then the Egyptian government took back power and got rid of the Muslim Brotherhood, and now they don't have power in Egypt anymore. So it's this whole thing, making sure that the governments are strong and making sure that the terrorists don't overpower the governments that are there. And then, of course, what else did President Trump do? He's such a great negotiator. I love it. The fourth slide, at Real Donald Trump, in just 3 months, trillions of dollars. We'll put up that slide. In just 3 months, trillions of dollars, and therefore record numbers of jobs have been pouring into the USA. This is because of my tariff policy and our great November 5th election win. The very stupid Democrats are doing everything within their power to disparage what is happening. They're totally unhinged and have lost all levels of confidence. It is a financial revolution, and they're being crushed. MAGA. As you know, the Democrats are trying to do everything they can. We'll put up that next slide in a minute. The Democrats are doing everything they can to undermine President Trump and his policies. President Trump is looking into a 2026 budget plan to be passed by Congress to get our country back on track. President Trump has already lowered the cost of oil. He's lowered the cost of eggs. He's lowered the cost of groceries. I've seen it. My groceries, I'm by myself. I'm a single woman. I'm not married. They would cost me $200 just for myself. And I wouldn't even buy that much. I'd buy maybe 5 or 6 or 7 items, and it's $200 a giant. Now I see my bill has gone lower. Now it went from 200 to 140 to 120 to 100 now even. I mean, it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. The cost of eggs went from $10 down to about $3 now. In some places, it went from $10 down to $5. But they are going down. The cost of gas. I remember spending close to $4 on gas. Now it's under $3 for unleaded. So I thank President Trump for that. I know he's working really hard to bring those gas prices down to make us energy independent again. And we all should thank him for that. And of course, what is helping our economy as well? Getting rid of these illegal criminals. Because as you know, with Joe Biden having millions and millions of these illegals coming to our country, it hurt we the people, it hurt the American worker. And what was going on is that the illegals were taking our jobs and the American workers were getting fired. And we'll put it up in the 5th slide. At Real Donald Trump, he said, our country has been invaded. We'll put up that slide. There we go. Our country has been invaded by 21 million illegal aliens, many of whom are murderers and criminals of the highest order. And if we aren't allowed to remove them, like we removed Kilmar Abrego Garcia because of a radicalized and incompetent court system, that has to do with the activist liberal judges that aren't doing their job, that are breaking the law. The USA will quickly and violently become a crime-ridden third world country, never to see greatness again. Our lawyers should state this fact when going before the United States Supreme Court and other courts. I was elected in a landslide, which is true. Won all 7 swing states, 312 electoral college votes, won 2750 to 525 districts, and he won the popular vote by 5 million votes. I must be allowed to do the job that I was elected to do. If not, we won't have a country anymore. Make America great again. And he's right. And I look at my friend Border Czar Thomas Homan. I look at the DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. They're doing their jobs every single day. They are removing all these illegals. There's a bunch of illegals where I have a residency here in Montgomery County. And I always contact ICE and I always contact DHS. And I tell them, like, there's a bunch of illegal terrorists that live in Montgomery County. I think you should take a look at them. I know for a fact that there's a bunch of illegals from El Salvador that live in Carroll County. I told DHS, I told ICE, you need to look into this. And they have deported a lot of them. They have sent them back to El Salvador. They've sent them to Guatemala, Honduras, wherever they came from. And again, in the state of Maryland, and we're actually going to have a woman who's running for lieutenant governor of Maryland. She'll talk about this, how the senator of Maryland, how congressmen of Maryland, they were doing everything they could to bring back this illegal MS-13 gang member, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He's a known MS-13 gang member. He almost killed his wife. He was accused of human trafficking in Tennessee. And this is who Senator Van Hollen is fighting to bring back. And this is who Congressman Jamie Raskin and Congressman Mafume and Congressman Johnny Oshefsky and Senator Alsobrooks is trying to bring back to this country. Oh no, they don't want to help the American person. They don't want to go to Rachel Morin's family. They don't want to go to Jocelyn's family and Kate Steinle's family and all these families where their poor son or daughter was murdered by illegal criminals. Oh, no, they want the illegal criminals in their state. You know why? Because they get votes from these illegals. They get votes from these illegal aliens and these illegal criminals. They do, because liberal states, especially Maryland, do not require photo ID, and they have a flood, an influx of illegals that vote for them over and over and over again. And that's why we need to fix the elections, the election laws in our country. But also that's why we need to get these illegals out of our country. And again, let President Trump do his job. This is what he was voted to do. Let him do it. Border czar Thomas Homan says he loves his job because he gets to pull illegal criminals out of their homes and take them back to their countries, because that's where they belong. And he's right. He's 100% correct. 100% correct. And another great thing that President Trump did with our new HHS secretary, RFK Jr., and of course, the new secretary that's working for Medicaid and Medicare, Dr. Oz Mehmet. This was very historic and it was a very great thing that happened this week. Our last slide, at Real Donald Trump, he said, for many years, the world has wondered, there we go, why prescription drugs and pharmaceuticals in the United States of America were so much higher in price than they were in any other nation, sometimes being 5 to 10 times more expensive than the same drug manufactured in the exact same laboratory or plant by the same company. And he's right about this. It was always difficult to explain and very embarrassing because, in fact, there was no correct or rightful answer. The pharmaceutical/drug companies would say for years that it was research and development costs, that all of these costs were and would be for no reason whatsoever borne by the suckers of America. And he's 100% right about that. That's why people go to Canada and other countries and Mexico for cheaper drugs. I know that the cost of Advil and the cost of Prilosec and the cost of Tums has gone significantly up. Mucinex is like $30. A nasal spray is $27. A little allergy eye drop called Pat-a-Day, which I use, which a lot of people use during this time of year. It's a small little eye drop. Guess how much that costs? $27 to $37. That's crazy. My contact solution is like $30 for not a big pint, just for like about 6 ounces. I mean, that's crazy. And I'll be honest with you, Botox has gone up. Medical Botox has gone up. Regular Botox has gone up. I know some people that get Botox, and they told me that they have Groupon deals. It's $149 for 20 units, which is very reasonable. But because of the cost of pharmaceuticals going up, especially Botox, it went from $149 for 20 units to $200 for 20 units. That's crazy. The average American can't afford that. That's crazy. So what does the plastic surgeon, the dermatologist tell you? Well, we have something else besides Botox. We have D-Sport. We have some other thing. No, if you're used to getting Botox, you like how Botox looks on your face, if you think it helps with the wrinkles better, you want your Botox. Fillers have gone up. Fillers went from like $10 a unit to like $20 a unit. Fillers are very expensive on the face. And these plastic surgeons and these dermatologists, they don't give you discounts. If they do, it's very small discounts. They don't even like giving out the discounts. And keep in mind, you can only use the discounts every 90 days. So if your Botox, doesn't work after a month, guess what? They won't give you complimentary Botox injections. They say now that the FDA will only give you complimentary Botox if the Botox messes up, if you get 64 injections all over your face. Average American doesn't need 64 Botox injections on their forehead and face. The average American gets between 42 to 45 Botox injections in their face. So the fact that the FDA said in order for the patient who has already paid for her Botox is supposed to last a woman about 3 to 4 months. If it's medical Botox, it's supposed to last 6 to 8 months. If the Botox for some reason doesn't work after a month, guess what? You, the American, get screwed, and you have to pay for additional units. Let's say you've already put out $400 worth of Botox. Now you got to put an extra $200 worth of Botox. It's crazy because you, the individual, didn't get 64 shots of Botox. Again, if you're 20 to 35 to 40 years old, you don't need 64 shots of Botox. But that FDA rule, that works. That's for everybody. Everybody that gets Botox, if you don't get 64 units or more, and your Botox doesn't work the first month, you got to pay for extra units. That's crazy. And I've told my friends, I said, you tell the dermatologists and plastic surgeons that the cost of Botox will be going down. I've actually reached out to President Trump in the White House about this because there's a lot of people that I know, especially in this industry, that do get Botox, that do get fillers. They either get medical Botox, regular Botox, fillers, whatever. That's to their discretion. And it's very expensive. It's very expensive. But when we're on TV, we have to look a certain way. We have to present ourselves a certain way. And it's very expensive to get Botox nowadays. It's not as cheap as it was before. But the fact that they say you have to get 64 units of Botox, 64, and if it doesn't work after a month, you can come back and get complimentary units. That's crazy. Because again, the average person isn't supposed to have 64 units of Botox on their face. But I thank RFK Jr., I thank Dr. Oz for pushing this, because they know that the cost of pharmaceuticals is very high. They know that the cost of prescription drugs has gone very high. I mean, I'm in the health insurance business. I have people call me all the time. They're like, oh my God, the cost of my prescriptions is like in the hundreds. I was talking to a woman, she had to get a certain shampoo for her hair because her hair is thinning, and it cost her like $100. I mean, that's crazy. Or it cost her $150 to get ivermectin. Some health insurance companies, they only will cover maybe 10 tablets for $15. And after that, it's over $100 just for ivermectin. Thank God some states like Arkansas, they're actually offering over-the-counter ivermectin. But for some states such as Maryland that don't, you're screwed. And a lot of times, these damn doctors, they won't even fill a prescription for ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine anymore. They say, well, there's studies that it doesn't work, yada, 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 yada. There is other ways to get ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. There's a website called allfamilypharmacy.com, which Sean Hannity's advertised, Bill O'Reilly. I get my ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine from that website, but I'll be honest with you, you don't get a lot and you're paying a lot. Like I paid for ivermectin, I got 10 tablets and it was like $80. It's a lot. But if for someone like myself that God forbid gets COVID, I'm going to need more than 10 tablets. So then I end up spending like hundreds of dollars. So it's a lot until these damn pharmaceutical companies, until they lower the cost of everything, until they stop screwing with the people are just going to keep going to Canada. They're going to go to Mexico for cheaper drugs. But I know that with RFK Jr. in there, with Dr. Oz Mehmet in there, the cost is going lower. I'll be honest with you. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of paying, $20 for a bottle of Advil for 80 tablets. Just 80 tablets of Advil, or $30 for a bottle of aspirin, which is only maybe 50 tablets. I mean, this is crazy. And I'm tired of paying for a nasal spray for $20. I'm tired of paying for certain prescription drugs that I take that are $100 here, $300 there. I'm tired of paying medical Botox for $600. It's crazy. It's really crazy. So I hope that the cost of Botox goes down. I hope that the cost of these prescription drugs and pharmaceuticals go down. But I know that President Trump, he has been working on this. He has definitely worked on this, and I'm so proud of him for it. But again, what is President Trump doing? He continues to make America great again and keep America great. And he also wants people in leadership that will make America great again and keep America great, which will lead us to our next segment coming up. We have a wonderful woman. We actually interviewed the Republican candidate for governor of the state of Maryland. Now he has announced that he announced his lieutenant governor, Dr. Brenda Thaim, who's a personal friend of mine, and she will be right with us after the break.
That you're no longer able to watch? Need them transferred to DVD, Blu-ray, or your smart device? Baltimore Digital offers professional-grade VHS, mini DV, and high 8 digitizing services. We can also convert Super 8mm film too. Baltimore Digital also provides photo restoration services. Visit archive.baltimoredigital.net. Mention code Alexandra for a 10% introductory.
Well, thank you so much to our sponsor, Adam Reuter. That's Baltimore Digital, baltimore.digital.net. Please go to his website, type in the name Alexandra, get 10% off. Again, we have our special guest. We'll put her picture up, Dr. Brenda Thaim. She's a former delegate, and now she's decided to throw her name in the ring with John Myrick to run as his lieutenant governor for Maryland. And we'll bring her up right now. It is such a pleasure to have you on the program, Dr. Brenda Thaim.
Pleasure to be with you this evening, Alexandra. I appreciate you offering the opportunity to come and hang out with you on this rainy Tuesday night over here in Hagerstown.
I know, it's been raining here all day. It's crazy.
Yes.
So anyway, we're talking about making America great again and keeping America great. and all the wonderful things that President Trump is doing, and the executive orders that he signed with, combating DEI and combating illegal immigration. But you currently have a governor, Wes Moore, that continues to combat President Trump on the illegal immigration and DEI. As lieutenant governor, what is your stance on that?
I would think that any governor who is currently in office would want to work collaboratively with the current administration, with the president and the vice president and their current cabinet members. Working against them would be futile. So I can't quite understand the controversy in that. I know, Governor Moore is a Democrat and President Trump is a Republican, but we've got to work together. Fighting against each other as a governor against the current administration and the president, it doesn't get us anywhere. So Governor Moore, I believe, would probably heed himself to extend the olive branch with President Trump and to work closely with him, because that's going to benefit Marylanders in the long run.
I agree with you, but I can also tell you that a lot of people have called Attorney General Pam Bondi to sue your state, to charge Governor Wes Moore and Mayor Brandon Scott and Attorney General Anthony Brown for going against the president's executive orders. And that's, really scary. But Attorney General Brown is one of those 18 liberal attorney generals that continues to sue President Trump on a daily basis. We just recently had Congressman Mafume, his real name is Frizzle Gray, who has called to arrest President Trump and arrest Elon Musk. What say you about that?
Oh, no. I mean, these are all frivolous claims or lawsuits that people are still, they're in a great TDS. They just cannot get over the fact that President Trump won this election. He is our president, and they have to work with him. All of these frivolous lawsuits attacking him one day after the next, it's just really not beneficial. So they need to, pull it together, for lack of a better word. Pull it together, work with this administration for the next 3 years, and let's just make our country great again, make our state of Maryland better than it has ever been. And they've just got to work together. At this point, they're not choosing to do that.
Now, you have been an educator for many years. I know education is a big, important thing for you, for your platform with Myrick. As you notice with especially Baltimore County and Baltimore City, the reading levels are horrific, as well as the math levels. And President Trump has even commented on the school system in Baltimore and also the Department of Education, Linda McMahon. She's talked about how Maryland really needs to get their act together in terms of education and upping these numbers, especially in Baltimore County and Baltimore City. As a lieutenant governor and working with Myrick, what is your goal to help bring these education numbers back up?
Absolutely. Maryland, we spend with our Maryland blueprint, we have, when I was in the General Assembly and during 2020 up to 2023, the Maryland blueprint passed the House and the Senate and became law. I voted against the bill. I thought it was too costly. I thought the idea of throwing money at education was senseless. That's not what we do. It doesn't make sense to continue throwing money. Now, of course, it takes money to fund and to give to local school district to make sure that they have the funding to support education. But we've seen that we still have students who are graduating high school and barely able to read. That should not be the case. Maryland, particularly Baltimore City, I believe they pay the most money per pupil to educate their students, and their students are failing. So that shows us that continually throwing money at education is not the answer. Now, we have to look at what is the answer. I think we need to look at teacher development, putting the right teachers in front of students. The younger, the better. Making sure that we start at a young age to make sure that children are learning their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. That's all we need to focus on. All these other agendas that are being pushed on our children should not exist in a school system. ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, get students ready for post-secondary outcomes when they graduate high school. They're able to read and write and do arithmetic to either pursue higher learning, going to college, or maybe some may choose a vocational training, or maybe some may decide to just go into a career. But the only way we're going to do that is to, again, drill down to the basics of how we educate children and focusing on common sense policies for them, which is just education.
Now, how are you and Myra going to work on combating the CRT and the gender identity that they're pushing into schools? There's a lot of mothers out there, and even liberal mothers and independent mothers that are very concerned about what's going on in the classroom. They're thinking about homeschooling their children, but as you know, a lot of people can't afford to homeschool their kids because the parents are working full time. What's your message to those mothers?
Absolutely. It's what is going on right now in the Maryland General Assembly. I actually had the opportunity to view the committee hearing of a bill that was sponsored by a former colleague of mine, where they wanted to, Republican, wanted to support school choice. We all know that if a school is failing children, if the public school is failing that child, if the school is at a 1 star according to the Maryland report card that we use to measure learning of students, if that child is in a school and that school is at a 1 star, meaning they're not meeting the standards for academic achievement or good school climate, students aren't learning English language arts at a rate of proficiency, then that parent has every right to pursue school choice in a private setting for their child. And the funding should follow the child. If it's not working in the public school for that child, the parent should have every right to pull that child from that school and to enroll them in a school of choice. That is what I support. Now, many say that that's taken away from public school funding when we do that. Then I say competition is good. If we want children, if we want that school to function at a level where they are educating children successfully, then parents wouldn't have the need to advocate for school choice. So if they're failing that child, parents should have a right to tap into a private school for their child. I support that 100%.
Now, Brenda, what do you think of these colleges and universities that are supporting Hamas, that are having these pro-Hamas rallies at their colleges? Johns Hopkins was one of them. University of Maryland was one of them. Georgetown, GW. As Lieutenant Governor, what are you and Myra planning on doing to combat the anti-Semitism that has been happening on college campuses and universities?
Right. We've got to hold these universities accountable. This should not be occurring on college campuses. Students should be able to go to their classes safely to learn, not people screaming on the college grounds, obscenities, and screaming things that may allow people to feel unsafe. I mean, I know there's freedom of speech. I get that. I'm a proponent of all of our rights under the Constitution. But certainly, if a university is allowing people to scream obscenities and use dangerous rhetoric that is causing people to feel unsafe, I believe we have to do something financial. And if it requires withholding funding from that university or from that institution, I would support that. 100%, I would support it.
I know the biggest thing they were trying to do in the delegation was to push full Holocaust or full Israel education into either K through 12 or even just 7th grade up to high school. Mm-hmm. And that was actually a bipartisan bill that we're trying to push between Democrats and independents. But for some reason, it just kept not going to the floor, and Governor Westmore wouldn't even bring it up. So as Lieutenant Governor and with Myrick, is that something that you guys will work on to implement real education as opposed to the CRT and the DEI, maybe push Holocaust education with the rest of the delegation, or maybe push to have the full 47-minute video of what happened on October 7th in colleges and universities?
I think it's important that we know our history so that we don't repeat history. So it's important that students know that unfortunate time that happened back in October So I would certainly support that children who are in K through 12 education, that they understand all aspects of history, that be it good, bad, or indifferent. They need to be taught. They need to learn about it, so that they would know that we, in here in the United States, we will not tolerate that type of rhetoric that's been pushed on a certain group or class of people.
Now, switching to another big topic. So Governor Wes Moore, he signed a huge bill to implement Section 8 housing, specifically in Fort Howard, which is a historic landmark in Baltimore County, and many other significant areas, such as next to St. Rita's Church. And those houses are worth $500,000 plus. As you know, when you put Section 8 housing into a nice area that's worth, $500,000 to $1 million, it actually devalues or depreciates that area. So as Lieutenant Governor, what would you do to kind of, I don't want to say combat Section 8, but kind of lower where the Section 8 goes in some of these areas, such as St. Rita's Church, or even a historic landmark such as Fort Howard?
I understand, and I'm empathetic to the reality that there are some people who may not be at a certain economic status as others might be. Maybe they're on a path towards pursuing a degree to better their lives, to get a better job, maybe some type of training that they're going to, a vocational training that they're going through to help improve the lives and, again, pursue a better job. We need to make sure that we are, with Section 8, make sure that people are not abusing the system. I know people personally who abuse the system, and the mother may have been in Section 8 housing, and now the daughter's in Section 8 housing, and then the daughter after that is in Section 8 housing. We have to ensure that we have parameters in place and guidelines in place with the law to ensure that people are not abusing the system. As I stated, yes, some people utilize it for short term. That's the purpose of these types of programs, these social programs, that people can utilize these programs, improve their lives, move out of those programs. Maybe someone else need to take that place and move in to help improve their lives. But we need to make sure that we are not allowing people to abuse the system and be stagnant in those programs, and just improve their lives. We got to teach people to, be champions for their own lives and for their children. Although I know that's a sticky topic for certain people, because they assume that people in Section 8 housing are lazy, they don't want to work, which some are. Some are lazy, some don't want to work, but there are some who just for short term need that time to get themselves together, improve their lives, and then move out. I think we need to put parameters on it. You can't be in Section 8 housing for more than 2 or 3 years. What are you doing to show that you're improving yourself? Are you enrolled in a program to get a degree? Are you in training at your job to elevate for promotion? Showing proof that you are trying to do better and you are trying to improve your life, to improve your income so that you can move out of that Section 8 housing.
And Brenda, how can we ensure that illegals aren't entering Section 8 housing?
Oh my goodness, yes, that's that just cannot be allowed. And it doesn't mean that as a Republican I'm against immigrants. I'm not against immigrants. My husband is an immigrant. He's here, moved here many, many years ago from Guinea, West Africa. He's now a naturalized citizen here of the United States. And, he worked hard. He came here the right way. And he decided to denounce his country of Guinea and become a citizen, a naturalized citizen of the United States. So, we're not against people who are immigrants who are not from this country. But if you're here illegally and you came into this country illegally and you're trying to abuse the system and access resources that are for citizens of the United States, then no, you're breaking the law and we can't allow that.
And do you agree with Thomas Homeland coming in and arresting certain activist judges or even mayors or even governors that are harvesting illegals, or saying we have to keep, quote, the Maryland man in here, even though we all found out that he was an illegal from El Salvador and a MS-13 gang member?
You know, I've tried to wrap my brain around understanding that. And I decided to give up because I said, I don't want to understand it. It doesn't make sense. I don't want to try to make it make sense. You know, with them going to El Salvador to fight for the rights of someone who came to this country illegally.
On
And
your
has
taxpayer dollars, on your dollars.
absolutely,
You're done.
and has engaged in, they like to use the word alleged, but in criminal activities. And they're fighting for someone like this, but they're not fighting for the families who have lost loved ones under the hands of an illegal immigrant. I can't, and they are the constituents. Those families are their constituents. So I'm not sure if that's the hill that the Democrats want to die on. It seems to be that that is the hill that they're fighting to die on. But it was proven in our last election that people don't support that. And for them to continue to pursue and pursue and pursue those avenues, you know, the next election, hopefully people are going to again say, this is not what we want.
Exactly, I agree. Turning to the Francis Scott Key Memorial Bridge, as you know, it's been at least a year since that bridge collapsed. And unfortunately, Governor Wes Moore, he has really done nothing to start the rebuilding of the bridge. He put up a picture. It took him a year to write up a picture of what it would look like.
The new design.
But he asked, you know, Joe Biden when he was in office, you know, he said, I want full federal funding for this bridge. And of course, Joe Biden said, yeah. But as you know, President Trump, he's not going to go for that. Right. So as Lieutenant Governor, what is your stance? What would you do to start rebuilding the Francis Scott Key Memorial Bridge?
You know, that the Key Bridge certainly was a travesty what happened just over a year ago with the Key Bridge coming down and collapsing, you know, but we've got to work expeditiously to get that bridge back up and operating. I think I read an article just a few days ago that they have announced using college students, I think like some type of internship program to bring in college students who are engineers or majoring in engineering to help them be a part of getting the bridge rebuilt. I say we have to do that sooner rather than later, getting it back in operation so that we're not losing any money. I think if I'm not mistaken, that they're still, are they rerouting cargo? And of course that can be very costly.
And the traffic has been hell. The traffic on 695 and 996 corridors has been hell.
Yes. So that should be top of the radar. If you know, if you want to call it the top 10 hits with this current administration, that needs to be in the top 5 to get that bridge up and built. Though it certainly needs to be done safely, but certainly it needs to be done most urgently.
Well, let me ask you, why hasn't Governor Wes Moore, you know, called upon Trump to come and take a look at the bridge, or even the new Secretary of Transportation, former Congressman Sean Duffy? You know, why hasn't, you know, Wes Moore, like you said, he's got to reach out into that olive branch. Why hasn't he done that? It's disgusting.
Well, you know, he has his base to answer to, and certainly if he extends an olive branch to President Trump, it would look too much like working together. Isn't that what we're supposed to do at the state and federal level? Mm-hmm. Work together to meet the needs of the people of here in Maryland. I'm a Marylander. So I don't think he wants to work closely with President Trump, because I know President Trump is, you know, he's waiting to be supportive in these efforts to get this bridge back up and running. But I don't think Governor Moore wants to do that, because, you know, doing that would make it look like, you know, number one, it would make sense to do that. But I don't think he's interested in doing things that are common sense.
And we remind the American people that President Trump is a builder. So this is his strong suit.
Go figure. He's the first person that Governor Moore should be reaching out to get this bridge
the builder.
Built
Now,
the
as you know, some of the bills that Governor Westmore has passed, and he still hasn't signed a few. One of them, he's looking into a reparations bill. What say you about that?
Oh my, first I do want to say, what happened to Black people, African Americans, whatever term people, want to use. I don't mind either one, but certainly the travesties that happened to our ancestors many, many years ago were unfortunate. We're sad. We're horrific. We can't discount that. We can't negate it. We'd be remiss if we didn't state the fact that those things, those atrocities that happened to our people were devastating. But that was many years ago. That was many, many, many years ago. And as Black people, speaking for myself and speaking for many other people who I know, we've come a long way. And it was on the backs of our ancestors. We are here today. We have the same rights as our racial counterparts. We can grocery shop in the same place. We can eat at the same restaurants. We can shop in the same stores. We can attend the same universities. We can apply to the same jobs. We can walk the same streets as people who are white. So certainly, this reparations bill that the governor has not yet signed, I don't think that's the answer to what it is that they're seeking. It's going to be yes, this is going to help Black Americans, reach the highest possible level of whatever it is that they think the reparations bill is going to do. Number one, facing the huge deficit, $3 billion, as I understand it, going into this next session. And they're thinking about possibly reparations. Where are we going to get the money?
Exactly.
Where's the money going to come from? Increased taxes, increased fees. Just recently, just ended this session, we have more fees that have been imposed on us, more taxes that have been imposed on us. We can't afford increasing taxes and fees from my pocketbook. If anything, we need to look at what can we do to save Marylanders more money, and that's what John and I are going to look at. What we're going to look at that budget. We're going to go through that budget with a fine-tooth comb, because I guarantee you there are probably duplicative services in our budget. There are holes in the budget. There's hemorrhaging in the budget. We have to look at where can we cut, where can we trim the fat, where can we consolidate, where can we combine things into one instead of having three different things. We have more departments at the state level than we do at the federal level, and that shouldn't be the case. So let's look at our budget first and look at where we need to trim the fat, shave things away, what things we need to keep to help Maryland operate at its best proficiency and efficiency. But certainly the reparations bill, we that should not even be anything that's considered at this point. We are in a significant deficit. Governor Moore came into a beautiful surplus budget, and now we're moving into a deficit for this next session, which is sad.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I just have two last questions for you. So, as you mentioned, I mean, basically, Governor Westmore is bankrupting your state. And as a result, a lot of people are leaving your state. They're going to West Virginia, they're going to Florida, Tennessee, they're going to states that have no state income tax, and the taxes aren't astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the biggest reasons why people are leaving Maryland is because of such high crime. I'm seeing in Howard County, in Columbia, at the Columbia Mall, which I go to all the time, a couple restaurants have closed down due to the high crime in Howard County, which is supposed to be the wealthiest counties in the state of Maryland. As Lieutenant Governor, what are you going to do to stop the crime, to lower the crime so that Marylanders feel safe again?
Absolutely. We have to ensure that we are requiring or making sure that criminals are facing consequences for the criminal acts that they engage in. We can't be soft on crime. We have to support our law enforcement to make sure that they have the tools and the resources that they need when they go out into the street and police our communities to help keep us safe. We have to make sure that, speaking of crime, even with our juveniles, with our youth, they are engaging in crimes. But with the current law, we can't really hold them responsible for the crimes that they commit because they're juveniles. No better way to show someone you better not do that again, other than giving them consequences for what they do.
Mhm.
So we are going to work hard to make sure that, again, law enforcement have the resources and the tools that they need to do their jobs, which are very dangerous when they go out into the community. Pulling someone over on the side of the street for speeding, at midnight. I can't imagine as a police officer or state trooper, when you approach the door of that driver, what might happen. We want to make sure that they return home safely to their families, and we're going to make sure that our law enforcement are protected and get the tools that they need, and then holding those criminals accountable for the crimes that they engage in.
So, final question. As you know, Maryland is a very liberal state. And one of the main things, your future constituents ask you is, how are you going to go across the aisle to those Black Democrats, to a lot of those Hispanics, and how are you going to bring them over to your side to leave the party and to see the light?
If we just stick to the facts, and the facts are certainly before us when we look at the businesses that are leaving the state of Maryland. I think there's a very prominent IT business that is leaving the state of Maryland and going to Tennessee. We lost the Washington Commanders. That was another project that was slated for Maryland. We lost that. Your taxes and fees are increasing. Your registration for your car is increasing. These are facts that affect my next door neighbor, my coworker, my church family. These are tabletop discussions that impact your pocketbook. And if we lay these things before people and talk about them, taking away the emotion, taking away the feelings, but sticking with facts, that's what we have to do as Republicans, to pull people on our side to say, this current administration, Governor Moore, are not Maryland friendly. They are not friendly to your pocketbooks. And I think when we say that and just lay it out plain and simple, black and white, people will understand that behind that handsome smile of his, you know, that honestly, he's an empty suit. He is bankrupt in Maryland. He's not for Marylanders. The supermajority Democrat in the state legislature are not for Marylanders. And again, if we lay that before people as we're door knocking, as we're out campaigning, as we're talking to people in the grocery store, people will understand, okay, well, you're exactly right. This current administration is not for me. So maybe I will vote Republican. That's what we want. That's what we want. We want more people supporting us, supporting common sense policies and legislation that is not going to do harm to the general public and do more good. That's the kind of policies that we're going to support.
So thank you so much, Brenda, for coming on. Tell my audience how they can follow you, how they can donate to you.
Yes, thank you so much for asking. I just joined John Myrick, and I'm certainly so appreciative that he, probably had some other choices that he can consider, and he probably considered, but he decided to choose me. So I'm honored to be his running mate to win back Maryland, to get us on the right track. So let me quickly get to, because I've not yet memorized the uh the website yet, but I'm going to give that to your watchers here, your viewers who are with us, so they can go to and to learn more about our platform, John and myself. they can go to John Myrick for mdgovernor.org, and I'll spell that out. That's JohnMyrickForMD governor.org. They can go to that website and learn all about us. They can reach us on that website. They can certainly donate. Can't win a campaign off smiles and handshakes. We certainly need funding, and whatever people can give, be it $10, $50, $500, maxing out at thousands of dollars. We need every bit of finances we can get to help us win this campaign, and we can do it with your help.
And Brendan, do you have any upcoming events that our viewers, independents, Democrats can go to your events and see you and meet you in person?
Right. We've not yet scheduled any specific campaign events, fundraisers, but this Saturday I will be at the Maryland Federation for Republican Women at their spring convention. I will be there Saturday, but certainly I will keep you abreast of any events we have forthcoming, and they can also find that information on our website on our calendar page.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It has been a pleasure. Again, we have Dr. Brenda Thaim, former delegate, and also now the Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor. And actually, you guys are running unopposed. You're the only declared
unopposed.
Unopposed.
We're going to keep it like that. We're going to, because we entered so early, you want to scare people off. And the more active we are, the more busy we're out meeting people and talking with people. Showing people that we're busy. We're interested and we are convinced that we can win this campaign and we can win back Maryland. So, and certainly if there are others who want to toss their head in the ring, so be it. It's going to be a good match. And John and I are certainly up for the fight.
Well, I just want to say, it's an honor just for you to run, because a lot of people talk and they don't run. And running is so difficult and so hard because you're putting your life on the line, you're putting your career on the line,
your family,
everything.
Yes.
I mean, everything.
And I work a whole full-time job, so so it can be very taxing. But when you're committed to something and you know that you can do some good to help get things a little bit better, then that's why I jumped in.
Well, good luck to you and Myrick. Thank you so much for being on, and we will be right back after the break. Hi, I'm Alexandra Levine. I'm a professional opera singer, actress, TV, and radio personality. Since 2015, I've been a volunteer, a field director, and a campaign manager, learning the ins and outs of the political world. That's why I became a political consultant. My job is to lead you to victory with organization, structure, and the mindset of winning for your district or state. With my guidance and direction, I can keep you focused on the things that matter to the people and advise you on key issues that need to be addressed. If you're a serious candidate that is serious about winning, then book a consultation with me today. Go to levineconsulting.co. You'll be happy you did. Hey guys, welcome back. This is Alexandra Levine live with the America's Pulse Network. Now to our top story. As you know, we've been hearing a lot of controversy about President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu. People are saying that President Trump is pulling away from Bibi Netanyahu, that he won't take his calls. There was even rumors and lies that were spread that President Trump wasn't taking calls of Miriam Edelson, my Jackson spokesperson, Siggy Flicker, and so forth. It's all fake news, guys. All fake news and propaganda. And I'll be honest with you, the propaganda from the left and even some rhino media outlets really, I don't know. They did such a good job with the propaganda that people started to believe it. And that's the problem. You have to really just peel the layers off and really just connect with the right sources and do your research and do your due diligence before you just pounce on something. There were stories that, President Trump is caving into Qatar and President Trump he wants a two-state solution. All of this is fake news. This is fake news. This is what President Trump campaigned on. Promises made, promises kept. We know President Trump from 2017. We know him now. He's doing so many things. He signed so many executive orders in such a fast period of time. Again, you have to trust the process. You have to trust the process. And as you know, I have a lot of ties with the country of Israel. My cousin was a prime minister of Israel, Moshe Sharet. He was the second prime minister of Israel. He was the first foreign minister of Israel. He worked very well behind David Ben-Gurion, who was the first prime minister of Israel. And as you know, I've been very involved with Israeli politics pretty much half my life. And I can tell you that President Trump is one of the biggest friends to Israel. He's one of the biggest supporters of Israel. We've never had such a pro-Israel president in the history of our lifetime. We've never had such a pro-Israel Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. We've never had such a pro-Israel Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. And we've never had such a pro-Israel Attorney General, such as Pam Bondi. And Tulsi Gabbard's very supportive of Israel as well. Elise Stefanik, who is going to be our UN ambassador, but now it's going to be Mike Waltz. She is extremely pro-Israel. And you have the EPA director, Congressman Lee Zeldin, a Jew, who's extremely pro-Israel. And we have Stephen Miller. I love Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is the deputy chief of staff. I call him hashtag that's my Jew. That's what I say about Congressman Lee Zeldin. Hashtag those are my Jews. Those are the type of Jews that I hang out with. Those are the type of Jews that I love to be around. Those are the type of Jewish men that I feel more Jewish men should emulate and be like. I'll be honest with you, if more Jewish men were like Lee Zeldin and Stephen Miller, they'd be married with kids already. And that's the truth. I mean, these guys are extremely brilliant. And I mean, Stephen Miller knows the law like no other. I mean, he combats CNN and ABC and MSNBC when they try to like push back on him in regards to illegal immigration. He was like, how many times do I have to explain the law to you? I mean, it's hilarious that he has to continuously explain the law to news reporters. He's like, didn't you guys do your due diligence? Like, didn't you read up about Kilmar Garcia? Like, what the heck? Like, how many times do I have to tell you? This guy is an illegal criminal from El Salvador. He's an MS-13 gang member. He's back in his country of El Salvador. He's not an American. He's home. He's in El Salvador. And now you're asking President Bukaic to bring him back into this country. I mean, it's just ridiculous and asinine. So again, we all need to just take a breath, take a step back. Again, if you watch the speech of what President Trump said in front of the Saudi Arabian prince, in front of everyone in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia today, it was beautiful. It was beautiful how he talked all about America, how he's putting America first. They actually played the song, and I'm proud to be an American, the Lee Greenwood song. They played it. President Trump did not speak until that song was completely finished. And then I think they had YMCA playing at the end of his speech, and everybody loved it. And you could see that President Trump is very well respected in the world, that America is well respected in the world today. And, you know, what Steve Witkoff is doing, a lot of people are like, you know, crapping on Steve Witkoff. They said, oh, he's got ties to this. He's got ties to that. He's done stuff there. I mean, people used to crap on Jared Kushner all the time. Jared Kushner was one of the founders of the Abraham Accords. And that's what we need to remember. 2 words, Abraham Accords. That is another reason why President Trump is in the Middle East. I told you, and I've told you, and I've told you, when President Trump, when he left the White House, he told these Middle Eastern countries, I'm coming back and we are going to continue the expansion of the Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia was next on the list. Saudi Arabia is on the list to be the next country to sign the Abraham Accords. And as you know, he's already signed it with Morocco, with Bahrain, with Sudan, with UAE. President Trump is going to UAE. And since President Trump left, Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco, and UAE have not broken that treaty. When Saudi Arabia signs the Abraham Accords, they will not break that treaty either. And what did Prime Minister Netanyahu say when he came to the halls of Congress? He said, we're going to call it the Abraham Alliance. That is what this is all about. So for everyone to believe the propaganda from the Jerusalem Post, from the Times of Israel, from Haaretz, from some of these wackadoo reporters, from I-24 Israeli News, and CNN and MSNBC, or they call it MSDNC, and ABC and NPR and PBS, to believe that President Trump would throw Israel under the bus and that President Trump is going to be working with terrorists. That's crazy and that's asinine. That will never happen. Again, President Trump is there to continuously expand the Abraham Accords, aka the Abraham Alliance. That's what we all need to remember here. And what has President Trump done? President Trump, of course, is pulling out the funding from a lot of these colleges and universities that put pro-Hamas rallies together. And my friend, Afshine Emrani, we're going to put up the first slide for him. He said, Columbia University suspended 65 Hamas supporting students who barricaded themselves in the library. Thank you, President Trump. That happened this past week. And what has Secretary of State Marco Rubio done? He's revoked a lot of these visas from these pro-Hamas idiots, like the guy in Colombia. I can't stand that people are protesting for him, how they're supporting this freaking illegal terrorist. We have illegal terrorists still here in Maryland and other states that need to go, like Chicago and so forth in California. They need to go. Send them to Gaza, send them to Lebanon, send them to Iran, send them to their respected country. A lot of these illegal terrorists were former Hamas, their parents were former Hamas militants. Their parents were former Hezbollah terrorists. Their parents were former Muslim Brotherhood. That's the truth. That's what we discovered. So when President Trump, when he's doing everything he can to remove these illegal terrorists out of our country, how is that not backing Israel? How is that not supporting Israel? Again, we have a lot of American Jews, American Israelis that have dual citizenship. They live in Israel. They also live in America. And the majority of the Israeli Americans that vote in our elections, they vote in Israel. They vote for President Trump. They voted for 92% in 2016. They voted 98% for him in 2020. And they voted another 98% for him in 2024. And I talk to a lot of Israeli Americans. They say, why can't the Jewish Americans be like us? Why can't they vote like us? Why don't they support President Trump like we do? Again, these liberal Jews, they give me a bad name. They give all Jews a bad name. Don't stop listening to the Congressman Raskins of the world, the Jerry Nadlers of the world, the Chuck Schumers of the world, the Adam Schiff, the Bernie Sanders of the world. They do not represent Jewish people. They do not have Israel's best interests at heart. Bernie Sanders is a total anti-Semite. He supports Hamas. He supports the Squad. He supports Linda Sarsour, who's a known anti-Semite. These are things that we as Americans, we know this. We know this. And we cannot, we can't get sucked into the propaganda. And the propaganda, let me tell you, of this week and last week was disgusting. That's why I want to remind our audience that we are not the mainstream media. We are not fake news. We will do our research. We will do our due diligence before we just, jump on the hate train. And again, when you attack President Trump, you're dividing the party again. You're dividing what we all voted for. Again, I've heard this coming from hardcore Trump supporters that are like, I don't like what President Trump is doing with Israel. Da, 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 da. Again, why don't you listen to the people that are involved with the administration? Why don't you listen to my friend Siggy Flicker, who's now a part of the Holocaust Museum Council? My friend Sid Rosenberg is also on there too. You need to listen to those people. Miriam Adelson, big fan and a very good friend of President Trump. Her late husband was a very good friend of President Trump's. They live out in Las Vegas. These are people that you guys need to contact before you just jump the gun. Before you jump the gun. Again, get educated. Get educated, guys. Don't just jump the gun here. And then my friend, Brian Leib, who's actually a part of the #Jexit organization. He's done a lot of international studies. He's based in Florida. He's an awesome guy. He tweeted this. Let's put it up. Real talk. If you actually thought the rumors that President Trump was set to recognize a Palestinian state were true, then you have no idea how President Trump operates or how politics works. What a farce. Shame on Jay Post and others for pushing fake news. And he knows. Brian Leib knows. Brian Leib has done so much for the Jewish community. He goes to Budapest, Hungary all the time. He's even brought the Hungarian ambassador over here to America. He's brought the prime minister, the president of Hungary over here. He is so good with international relations. And he just proved the point. To think that President Trump would support a Palestinian state, a two-state solution, is crazy. Remember, President Trump was the one that wanted the United States to own Gaza, turn it into the Riviera, Mara Gaza. He hasn't taken that off the table. If President Trump said, I'm going to own Gaza, does that mean he wants a two-state solution? No, just the opposite. He did that to say no two-state solution, and he did that as an FU to Turkey. He did that to say, because Turkey likes Hamas. They like they like the terrorists. That's why he's meeting with them. That's why he's the only one that can sit and meet with him, with Netanyahu and so forth, and the Saudi king and so forth, and the Syrian leadership and so forth. President Trump's the only one that can do this, Because under Obama and Biden, they wrecked that relationship between Turkey and Israel. Then when Trump came in 2017, he rebuilt that relationship between Turkey and Israel. Turkey's going to get on board. I told you, Turkey is one of the strongest armies in the world. Strongest armies. Erdogan wants to go back to the Ottoman Empire. Remember, under the Ottoman Empire, Israel didn't exist. So now President Trump is coming to the table. He's going to work with these guys. And he even said, I don't agree with a lot of what they say. I don't agree with a lot of what they believe in. But remember, the enemy of the enemy of the enemy is your friend. Instead of him going and speaking illy of all these people in Saudi Arabia, he did the opposite. He said, no, I want to come together and come to the table. That's what you do. You come to the table. He's not coming he's not coming to the table with a bunch of terrorists. That's what Obama did. Obama brought the Muslim Brotherhood into the White House. Remember that. He was the reason why the Muslim Brotherhood was on the uprise. Obama hung out with the Taliban. Obama is the reason why ISIL even existed. Obama is the reason for the rise of MS-13 gang members. That's Obama. That's not President Trump. So don't confuse the two. Two different men, two different administrations, and two different mentalities. One, Obama and the Socialist Democrats, they support terrorism, they support illegal criminals and illegal aliens. President Trump does not. Don't forget that. And then we have my friend, Ambassador Mike Huckabee. He's the new ambassador to Israel. He shut down the fake news. What did he say? Let's put up the third slide. He said, at Jerusalem Post. And Jerusalem Post has become very center-left in the last few years. Needs better sources than this, quote, unidentified source. My 4-year-old grandson, Teddy, is more reliable. And take it from Teddy. This report is nonsense. Israel doesn't have a better friend than POTUS. There you go. That's coming straight from the ambassador to Israel's mouth, Mike Huckabee, who is a former governor of Arkansas. I love Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee loves Israel. That's one of the reasons why he became the ambassador. He's a Christian man that loves the Jews, that loves Israel, that's been to Israel over 30 times. He's doing such a great job as the new ambassador. And you heard it from him first. He said, there's no better friend to Israel than President Trump. And that's the truth. That's the truth. Again, this whole thing about Trump having a Palestinian state, first of all, there's no such thing as Palestine. Palestine doesn't exist. When they sway these Palestinian flags, they made them up. They're man-made. There's no such thing as Palestine. Everybody knows this. Even the Palestinians know there's no such thing as Palestine. But they're sucked into the propaganda. And remember, the majority of Palestinians voted for Hamas in 2005. Remember that. 2005, they voted for them. The pullout came, then they voted for Hamas to come in and take over Gaza. And now we're trying to build Israel and the United States are trying to build a better Gaza. It's actually Israel. It is right now they are there going in there and they're going to blow the hell out of Hamas. They're tired of it. Now is the time. And they actually have been blowing up Hamas. It's not reported. The fake news is not going to report what's really going on there. Unless you're really there on the scene, you don't know what the hell is going on there. I have friends that are currently in the Israeli Defense Force. They tell me what's going on over there. Again, I'm still very connected to the Israeli government. They tell me what's going on over there. You have to know the right channels. You have to talk to the right people before you jump to conclusions. It's very true. And then what did President Trump do? What did he do that Joe Biden could have done a year and a half ago? He brought back the last Israeli-American hostage who's from New Jersey. He's from Tenafly, New Jersey. His name is Alexandra. We'll put up the tweet at Real Donald Trump. I'm happy to announce that Alexandra, an American citizen who has been held hostage since October 2023, is coming home to his family. I'm grateful to all those involved in making this monumental news happen. There was a step taken in good faith towards the United States and the efforts of the mediators, Qatar and Egypt, to put an end to this very brutal war and return all living hostages and remains to their loved ones. Hopefully, this is the first of those final steps necessary to end this brutal conflict. I look very much forward to that day of celebration. And as you know, President Trump is going to Qatar. There were some reports that President Trump invited Alexandra and his family to Qatar to meet him in person. Again, I look at that like, you got to get the sources right. Where is this source coming from? Who has said this? First of all, Alexandra was tortured for a year and a half in a dungeon in Gaza with Hamas. He barely ate. They saw that there was cigarette butts all over his body. That means the Hamas took cigarettes and were just like lighting his body on fire. He barely ate anything. Now he's in a hospital in Tel Aviv where he needs to go there and recover. They have to do a full analysis on him. The young man is probably very traumatized. You could only imagine what happened to him. And they said that President Trump will be calling the young man, and that President Trump is inviting the young man to the White House, and he will see him in person. But everybody's like, oh, well, President Trump invited him to Qatar, to take a photo op with him. It was all about the photo ops. That is not true. President Trump has been on top of getting these hostages out. He even said before he took office, if the hostages aren't out before I take office, they'll be held to pay. This is something that President Trump worked on with Bibi Netanyahu, with Steve Witkoff, who's the special Middle East envoy, and Morgan Ortegas, but it was really Steve Witkoff that did the majority of the work, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. They all worked together to bring this young man back safe and alive. And there is still 58 hostages there. Some of them are dead. Some of them are alive. But if you don't think that Israel and America worked with the Central Intelligence to find this young man, to see if he was alive or dead, you're dead wrong. You're dead wrong. And we should be thanking President Trump for this, thanking him, not accusing him of sending this boy to Qatar. Again, you got to know where these articles are coming from. Jerusalem Post is not as conservative as they used to be. They have gone center left over the years. Haaretz is very left. The Times of Israel is center left. The only Israeli media outlet that I read is Arutz Sheva. Arutz Sheva is pretty conservative. And I actually speak to people that are on the ground, actual investigative reporters that are literally on the ground, that are fighting in Israel. I have a friend named Avi Abelo. He is an officer in the IDF. He has dual citizenship, American and Israeli. I know he fully made Aliyah to Israel, and he lives there, but he's also an officer. And he reports in real time what's going on over there. Those are the type of people you need to listen to. Siggy Flicker is someone you need to listen to. Michelle Lubin-Teres, who's the president and founder of Jexit Inc. You need to listen to her too. She has the facts right there. She puts out the facts for everyone to see. Mike Huckabee, read up on him. Read what he writes. These are the people that you guys need to listen to. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary. I mean, she reports everything that President Trump tells her to say and do. She's the ears and eyes of the president. He tells her what's going on. She reports it to the fake news, the mainstream media. I'm in those briefing rooms. I mean, come on, guys. When it comes to the unwavering support that President Trump has for Israel, you cannot question it. It's there. It's been there. It's been there for years. Remember, President Trump has a Jewish daughter, Jewish grandchildren, and he's going to go against Israel? When Netanyahu comes to America, he feels good. When he visited Mar-a-Lago with Sarah, with his wife, it was like he felt so good being with President Trump. It was just the way that President Trump treated him at Mar-a-Lago was so beautiful compared to how Biden and Kamala Harris treated the Prime Minister of Israel. And when President Trump goes to Israel and visits Netanyahu, they're going to treat President Trump like a king. They won't be able to do enough for him because that's the relationship that they have. President Trump has great relationships with everybody. It's just a lot of people still have Trump derangement syndrome. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But again, this whole facade that Trump wants a two-state solution, that Trump is working with the enemy behind the scenes, that Trump is undermining Israel, it's all fake news. It's all fake news. Remember what I said, 2 words, Abraham Accords, expansion of the Abraham Accords, which is what President Trump worked on with his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, with Jason Greenblatt, with former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, with Peter Navarro, with Bill Barr, with Rick Grinnell. Those were the people that were in the room. I know, because I was on those conference calls. I was a national faith leader for President Trump. I was on every single conference call in regards to faith, regards to those negotiations. Larry Kudlow was involved in that too. And now President Trump has even more loyal people to him that are working to expand the Abraham Accords. And if you don't think that President Trump and Netanyahu constantly talk, they do. If you don't think that President Trump is in constant contact with Mike Huckabee, he is. So again, stop thinking that President Trump is undermining Israel. And Netanyahu, remember, he said no more tariffs, but he also came out and said that I'm not going to be dependent on America anymore in regards to military, in regards to military equipment. He wants to be more independent, which is what President Trump wants. He wants a lot of these countries to not, scrounge us looking for money, like what Zelensky does. Zelensky came to our country how many times and asked us for money? Netanyahu has never reached out his hand and said, we need money. Never. Never. Congress passed a bill to appropriate funds to Israel because of October 7th, but Israel didn't demand it. And remember, Israel paid for their armed military equipment. They paid for it. President Trump said they paid for it. Give it to them. They already paid. And remember, we work with Israel on their central intelligence, on environment, on technology, on pharmaceuticals, and so forth. There's reciprocation there. With Ukraine, there's not. Ukraine has their hand out, but they don't give us anything back in return. We all know this. And for Zelensky to have the audacity to keep asking us for money, Putin hasn't asked us for money. I mean, Putin is one of the wealthiest men in the world, but he doesn't ask us for money. He doesn't ask us for really help for this war. And Putin is actually more interested in stopping the war than Zelensky is. That's been coming out lately. I knew that. I knew the more that Zelensky came asking us for money, huge problem. The fact that we were helping this ridiculous war. President Trump said enough is enough. Same thing with Governor Westmore asking for federal funding to fix the bridge. How dare him? How dare him? When there was a huge hurricane in Florida, the Sanibel Bridge, half of it collapsed. My governor rebuilt that bridge within 3 months. He put a temporary and then he put a real one. Within 3 months. It didn't take him years. But Governor Westmore wants to wait till 2028 to put this bridge together. 2028. But 3 years from now. The people of Maryland, they can't wait for a bridge for 3 years. The traffic is insane. The cargo is not getting where it needs to be. It's taking a long time to get things from distribution centers because there's no bridge. Places that used to take me 50 minutes to get to takes me almost 2 hours now because there is no bridge, because I'm stuck in that traffic from sometimes 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 5, which is crazy. There should not be bumper to bumper traffic on 695 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Doesn't matter what day of the week it is. Sometimes it's a Saturday and I'm stuck on that damn traffic. Or stuck in that traffic, I should say. But it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that these governors, that these leftist loons, they want federal funding for everything. And when Israel wants to be independent, that should be celebrated. That doesn't mean that we're breaking away from them. Not at all. Remember, President Trump came in on America first. Biden put Ukraine first. Biden put illegal criminals first. Illegals first, over American citizens, over our children. And again, going back to the propaganda, what did Mark Levine, the great one, say? Slide 5. He said, I understand the Israeli left and media and our isolationists and media are apparently leaking falsehoods to try and split POTUS and the Prime Minister of Israel. But both allies are aware of the campaign and dismiss it. That's from the great one, Mark Levine, who's Jewish. And I met him in person. And he's right. The Israeli left and the Israeli media are putting out this propaganda. And there's a deep state in every country. There's a deep state in Israel too. And they're pushing this propaganda campaign to say that there's a rift between Israel and the Prime Minister. One of my good friends, Ron Dermer, who's the number 2 guy to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and Danny Damone, who represents Israel at the UN, they have vehemently come out and said, there's no tensions between Israel and the United States. Stop with this propaganda campaign. All Danny Damone asks is that the UN stop funding terrorists. That they admit that UNRWA was a part of October 7th. That they admit that it was a massacre of the people. It wasn't just Jews. There was Christians that were murdered too. But what more? What more does President Trump have to do to show we the people, to show Israelis his support for Israel? Myself, I get it. The Jexit organization gets it. ZOA gets it. A lot of other pro-Israel and conservative groups get it, like the Young Jewish Conservatives group. They get it. And the leftist Jews, they know President Trump's support for Israel, but they push the propaganda on purpose to try to make him look bad. I stopped reading the Jerusalem Post. I don't read a lot of media outlets in Israel because a lot of them are left. They're center left, or sometimes are even far left. It's disgusting that Israeli media would not report this fairly. It's not right. And then this whole thing about President Trump buying this $400 million plane from Qatar, or taking $400 million from Qatar for this plane, for the new Air Force One plane. Let me tell you something. President Trump has asked Boeing, which is an American company, he's asked them for 10 years to rebuild him a new plane. They've been sitting on it for years. This is the real news about the Air Force One plane with my friend Phil Holloway. Let's put up that tweet. Slide 6. Phil Holloway said, fake news. Boeing is so far behind schedule with the new Air Force One ordered years ago, 10 years ago, that Trump asked a Florida defense contractor called L3 Harris to overhaul a 747 once used by the Qatari government. He asked a Florida defense contractor to overhaul the 747 once used by the Qatari government. But what did Jonathan Karl say, fake NBC? That President Trump was just accepting this gift from Qatari, just a $400 million Air Force One plane. That he was taking it as a gift for his personal, which we know is illegal, and President Trump would never do that. This is Air Force One we're talking about. President Trump said, I look at all the other planes. My plane is small compared to the others. And remember, President Trump, he was almost killed in Butler, Pennsylvania. They have tried many attacks, assaults on him and his life and his children. They've threatened his children's lives. He needs a big plane. He's asked Boeing to put up a big plane. And remember, President Trump is a builder. He knows buildings. He knows airplanes. He wants the best of the best. This had to do with Boeing. Didn't have to do with President Trump taking $400 million from Qatar. Again, fake news, as my friend Phil Holloway said. Yeah. Again, he asked a Florida defense contractor called L3 Harris to overhaul a 747 used by the Qatari government. It was used by the Qatari government. That doesn't mean he's taking money from Qatar and using it for his own personal gain. Again, let's read the facts here. Let's read the facts before jumping to conclusions. And Qatar has a lot of money. They're a very well-to-do country. A lot of money in Qatar. A lot of money. We do know that Qatar did have a lot to do with October 7th. But as you know, in certain countries like Iran and Iraq, they have terrorist organizations that try to start havoc. And those are the ones that cause the horrors. They're having that in Syria right now with ISIS and Al-Qaeda after each other and going after Syrian Christians. That's why the Syrian government is coming to meet President Trump tomorrow to discuss that. Israeli forces are actually in Syria today helping the Syrian Christians, just like they help the Lebanese Christians. A good friend of mine, Brigitte Gabriel, she's a Lebanese Christian. She talks about how Israel and how the Israelis saved her life when she was a young child and how she supports the country of Israel. Stop reading into the propaganda, guys. Stop reading into the propaganda. President Trump isn't doing business with terrorists. President Trump isn't selling our country down the tube to terrorists or doing business deals or trying to build a hotel. That's what everybody's thinking. But remember, President Trump, he's got hotels all over the place, all over the world. That's how he made his money. But President Trump doesn't control Trump International anymore. That's under his son, Eric Trump. Eric Trump controls Trump International, and Eric Trump does a damn good job. I was at Trump Doral, and I took pictures of Trump Doral. It didn't look that great. I sent it to Eric Trump. I sent it to the team. Guess what? They took care of it in a week. They spruced up that place because I brought receipts. I showed pictures. But again, the relationship couldn't be stronger between Israel and the United States. And my friend, White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt, she put this, and she said this, and here's our last slide. She said, quote, there will absolutely, I can't even read it. There will be absolutely no recognition of a Palestinian state at all. President Trump's relationship with Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu is very strong. That's it. That's period. She shut it down. There will be absolutely no recognition of a Palestinian state at all. She said it. The relationship between President Trump and the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, couldn't be stronger. And she's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I can't wait to go to Israel when President Trump is there. I can't wait to cover that. I can't wait to meet Mike Huckabee over there and so forth. It will be an honor above and beyond. But me as a Jewish person to go to UAE, to go to Bahrain, to go to Sudan, and maybe Gaza one day is a blessing and honor to itself. And even to go to Saudi Arabia. Prime Minister Netanyahu always talked about how he would love to fly into Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. He's not allowed. Now, the Saudi king, he flies into Ben Gurion, Tel Aviv airport. He's allowed. But Prime Minister Netanyahu said, all I would love to do in this world is to fly into Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And hopefully that will be done. Hopefully Saudi Arabia will be the next in line to sign the Abraham Accords, and we can expand that alliance and build a safer and more peaceful Middle East. Not just for today, but for the future. President Trump and Netanyahu are looking into the future of Israel, into the future of America. They want to reshape and rebuild America and Israel for the next 75 years plus. And I can't wait to see it happen. Coming up after the break, we are discussing about lawmakers, Democrat lawmakers, still supporting illegal immigrants and actually storming into an ICE detention center. That's crazy and asinine. 3 Democrat congressmen from New Jersey did this. And as you know, we have 2 people from New Jersey that are on this network, and I know they're disgusted by it. So coming after the break, that segment will be up, and it's just disgusting and appalling what these 3 Democrat congressmen did. That'll be right after the break.
This is APN's very own White House correspondent, Alexandra Levine.
Hello, everyone. This is Alexandra Levine with Alexandra Levine Live on the America's Pulse Network. You are all in with Alexandra Levine. We are still waiting for someone from the White House to come out and tell us what transpired between President Trump and Vladimir Putin on that call today. We are here live at the White House. We're waiting for White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt to come out and tell us about the updates of today, the call between President Trump and Vladimir Putin, what transpired in that call.
Subscribe and follow America's Pulse Network on the above social medias.
And hello, everyone. We are back. This is Alexandra Levine live with the America's Pulse Network. Yes, I am the White House correspondent for this network. It is an honor above and beyond to go into the White House briefing room with Caroline Leavitt and to be on the White House lawn with President Trump and others. And I'm so happy to be a part of it. Turning to our segment 4, Democrat elected officials think they are above the law, like Letitia James and so forth. But this is so asinine. What happened? 3 Democrat congressmen from the state of New Jersey, they stormed an ICE detention center. They are upset that ICE is doing their jobs. Remember, this is a different administration. The current administration combats illegal criminals, combats illegal aliens, and want them the hell out of our country. Remember, Joe Biden put 21 million illegal immigrants into our country. He just allowed them to come in. He opened them with open arms. And what was the result of a lot of those illegal criminals? They killed innocent Americans. And we'll put up the first slide by my friend Todd Starnes. Todd Starnes wrote, quote, "I touch whoever I want, mother effer." That was said by Representative LaMonica McIver, the Democrat congressman from New Jersey, and 2 other members of Congress from New Jersey physically attacked federal agents. There's ICE body cam footage. The members of Congress should all be arrested and should face felony charges of attacking federal agents. Treat them as enemy combatants and send them to Gitmo. And I agree, they should all be arrested. Not just be removed from their committees, but they should be arrested. I know some of the congressmen, they said that they were in jail or they were put in solitary confinement. They said that the ICE agents were very nice to them, that they handled it very professionally. But why in the hell would a lawmaker who represents we the people, would go down and support illegal criminals against their own, against Americans? They represent the American people of their district, but they're fighting for illegal criminals. They're actually combating ICE, combating Border Patrol. That's crazy and asinine. What makes them think that this is cool? What makes them think that this is right? And why are they not in handcuffs? They should all be in jail. They should all be in jail, not just removed from office, but put in jail in handcuffs. And I applaud ICE agents. I applaud border agents for getting those congressmen out of there and putting them where they need to go. I think they put them in jail or solitary confinement for a while. But also, those congressmen put the ICE agents and Border Patrol's lives in peril by saying, come on, illegals, come on, let's go through, let's go. You know how many ICE agents and Border Patrol agents were killed or attacked because of all these illegal criminals and illegal immigrants coming into our country? Remember, the drug cartels were flooding into our country. Fentanyl, which is a deadly drug, was flooding into our country by the thousands. The sex trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking is $1 billion business. You had all these kids that were sex trafficked and human trafficked and smuggled into our country. You had parents working with the drug cartels, telling their kids to cross the border illegally. And when they did that, they were kidnapped and they were smuggled and sold into slavery, sex slavery. That's the truth. Those are the facts. And that's what these 3 congressmen from New Jersey are telling you, that they support the drug cartels, they support illegal criminals, illegal aliens over American citizens. And that is disgusting. They should go to jail for that. That is so disgusting. I cannot believe that this is happening in America. Why would anybody support an illegal criminal? Why would Senator Chris Van Hollen go to El Salvador on your taxpayer dimes and try to bring back this illegal MS-13 gang member whose wife said she was in fear of her life, who was a human trafficker? Why would Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, Congressman Mafume, Congressman Johnny Oshevsky, why would they stand and support this? Why would those 3 congressmen vote for the Lincoln Riley Act? That means that they support an illegal criminal murdering and raping and torturing an American citizen. Why didn't Chris Van Hollen do anything for the Rachel Morin family? Rachel Morin was raped, killed, and murdered by an illegal criminal from El Salvador. What about Tammy Noble's family in Frederick County, Maryland? Her daughter was murdered and raped by an illegal. I think he was also an MS-13 gang member from El Salvador. A lot of MS-13 gang members from El Salvador, and there's a horde of them all over Maryland, especially in Carroll County and Baltimore County. They've been reported. If you know any MS-13 gang member, any illegal criminal, please report them to DHS and ICE immediately. Get them out. Don't hesitate. If you see an illegal terrorist, because there's a lot of them where I reside in Montgomery County, go directly to ICE. Go directly to DHS. They will take care of them. Go directly to Pam Bondi. She will take care of them. If you see any illegal or anybody on a student visa at a college campus spewing out pro-Hamas crap and saying death to Jews and F the Jews, go directly to Secretary of State Marco Rubio or look into revoking their visa. That is what should be. That's what should have happened years ago. That's what should have happened under Obama and Joe Biden. But no, the Democrats, the fact that they support terrorists, that they support illegal criminals is disgusting. And these lawmakers should be in handcuffs. Handcuffs, not just removed from their committees, handcuffed. I know the DHS and ICE are working on this. Thomas Homan, I know him. He won't put up with this crap. Neither will Kristi Noem. How dare these lawmakers do this? How dare these lawmakers do this? I would be embarrassed if that was my congressman. I'd be embarrassed if it was my senator. I would do everything in my power to get those guys in handcuffs, make sure they're removed from office. Unbelievable that they're fighting for these illegal criminals. Unbelievable. And now we have this Democrat socialist attorney general from New York, Letitia James. She thinks that she's above the law. She tried to put President Trump in jail. She's a moron. She's been charged by Pam Bondi, and hopefully she'll be in jail for mortgage fraud. She also claims that she's a permanent resident of the state of Virginia, but yet she's the attorney general of New York. How does that work? How does that work? I didn't think that worked. You can't be a permanent resident of one state and then be an elected official in another state. They're looking at Adam Schiff too, because Adam Schiff, he's a permanent resident of the state of Maryland, Potomac, Maryland, actually. But yet he's a senator from the state of California. How is that possible? How's that legal? It's not. So a couple statues went up in Manhattan, in the heart of Manhattan, New York City, in Times Square. One looks particularly of Letitia James. And we have a couple memes that were created of Letitia James being sniffed by Joe Biden. We'll put that image up right now. Oh, yeah. I mean, that kind of looks like something Joe Biden would do. I mean, he's a known sniffer. I mean, he sniffs everybody, even children. But that statue looks just like her. There was another statue that was created that looks even more like her. The woman is like 400 pounds. Oh, that's another one. That's a new statue coming soon. Happy Mother's Day. Letitia James in handcuffs. That's another meme that came out from the conservative politics. That's what should really happen. That should not be a statue, though. That should be real life. She is not above the law. All these people that tried to put President Trump in jail, that indicted him, that wrote one conviction, but wrote it 34 times. That's what Alvin Bragg did. It was one conviction, but he wrote it 34 times. To convict President Trump 34 times, to call him a convicted felon. That was their objective. And Letitia James, she's screaming, these are asinine allegations. It won't go anywhere because I'm black. Nothing should happen to me. DEI is over, honey. It's not about you being black. You committed a felony. You broke the law. You committed mortgage fraud. You also, again, claim that you are a permanent resident of the state of Virginia, but yet you're an elected official in New York City. Can't happen, honey. And I know they're looking into arresting Adam Schiff for what he did, for working behind the scenes and doing a lot of illegal activity, and also the fact that he's a permanent resident in the state of Maryland, but yet he's an elected senator. Well, actually, he was appointed and then elected later, but he is a senator of the state of California. He's in the halls of Congress. These people should be arrested immediately. We cannot continue to have lawmakers break the law. And I swear to God, if I hear one Democrat say, no one is above the law, no one is above the law, everything that the Democrats say, like when they attack President Trump, they do it. When they call President Trump a convicted felon, they're the convicted felons. When they say no one is above the law, President doesn't act like that. They act like they're above the law. When they think nothing's going to happen to them. When they accuse other people of being pedophiles, and they're pedophiles. When they accuse President Trump of this, they all did it. When they accuse President Trump of fraud, they committed fraud. We all know this. When people get defensive and start just being accusatory, or when you try to ask a pastor or a state senator or a state delegate about a certain bill that they passed or a certain thing that they've said or posted, and you question them and they block you, that means they know they're in the wrong. They don't want to deal with it because they know they're in the wrong. Your congregants are asking you, why do you support this pastor such and such? Why do you support that? And when they ask him, he blocks them. All they do is ask a question, a legitimate question, and they just get blocked. So I'm really hoping that these congressmen get arrested. I'm really hoping that Letitia James goes to jail for her crimes. I'm praying that Dr. Fauci goes to jail for crimes against humanity. Maybe send all these people to Alcatraz. Maybe that's why President Trump wants to reopen Alcatraz. Send these horrible American criminals, these activist judges that are going against the law, going against President Trump, trying to hurt him, send them to Alcatraz, let them rot in there. Or worse. Because no one is above the law. And that means you, Letitia James. That means you. Well, don't forget, we have our brand new show actually starting tomorrow night, May 14th, Wednesday night, 8 to 9 p.m., called The Pulse. The Pulse is going to have myself, Seth Eisenberg from the Conservative Corner, Damon Galda from the Jersey Shore. We're going to have two special guests. Not going to reveal their names because it's going to be a secret, but it's going to be awesome. It's going to be a 5-people panel, and I hope that you guys all tune in. It's an addition to the America's Pulse Network, and we are so happy of this new show. We're going to talk about multiple different topics for an hour, and we want as much audience engagement as possible, so it starts tomorrow night. It's going to be every Wednesday night from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern, so don't touch that dial. Stay with us. Also, don't forget, we have another show. We have the Jersey Shore podcast with Damon Galdo. He's on Monday nights, 8 to 10 p.m. I know he's doing some stuff on Friday nights as well, still, I think from 8 to 9. I know he's changed some of his times from his show, but we'll keep you posted on that. And he's got a wonderful show. He's got wonderful guests that come on his show. And, of course, please don't forget about our friend Seth Eisenberg. He will be starting back on the Conservative Corner on Sundays from 7 to 8 p.m., but he does have a GoFundMe still. As you know, our poor friend Seth, he had a very bad infection in his foot. He had to get about 5 surgeries. His white blood cell count went up. He was basically in a hospital for 34 days. And now he's up and running, but we want him really fully recovered and up and running. We have a goal for him set at $25,000. The final goal is $100,000. He's raised close to $6,000 already, but we need to keep those donations going. Instead of giving to murderers and illegals and terrorists, give to our friend Jonah Eisenberg, Seth Eisenberg from the Conservative Corner. So please go to GoFundMe.com, help-jonah-eisenberg-overcome-health-crisis. But he will be with us. But the more money you give him, the more he can recover, the faster he will be up and running, and it'll be great. It'll be awesome for all of us. And as you know, Seth Eisenberg is a veteran. He served the Navy. We got to get back to our veterans, guys. Our veterans are very important. So please go to his GoFundMe, Jonah-Eisenberg-overcome-health-crisis. And don't forget my friend Allison Reedy. She's been a guest on my show many times. Go to her Facebook group page, My Son on the Altar. Please go to her GoFundMe for her son, Dylan. She has a college fund for him, Dylan College Fund After Adversity. All he wants to do is go to this one college in Utah so he can live the American dream. And as you know, her son was falsely accused of being a domestic terrorist. They won the case. He was found not guilty, but his mother is constantly fighting for justice. And she's a phenomenal mom, but he needs money to go to college. This has weighed on them with all the lawyer fees that they've had to pay for her son. So please go to her GoFundMe, GoFundMe.com, Dylan College Fund After Adversity. Please, guys, instead of donating to murderers, illegal criminals, and terrorists, give your money to these people. Give your money to Seth Eisenberg. Give your money to Allison Reedy. They'd really appreciate it. And of course, don't forget to follow us at America's Pulse Network on Rumble, at America's Pulse Network on X, at America's Pulse Network on YouTube. And now we are on Truth Social at America's Pulse Network. And of course, don't forget to follow me, Alexandra Levine, on Facebook, at Alexandra Levi20 on X, at Air Levine 85 on Rumble, at Air Levine 85 on Truth Social, at Levine Consulting on YouTube. Again, this has been a wonderful 2-hour show. We will be back tomorrow night with The Pulse, and then you will see me again Thursday night with Alexandra Levine Live. We have another special guest, another person running for office. We will keep you on suspense on that. And please, guys, remember, the reason you listen and the reason you watch is you are no idiot.
Mainstream media is bought and paid for. The truth is twisted to fit their agenda. But America is waking up because podcasts are the future for trusted media. Welcome to the America's Pulse Network. It is a network built by patriots that upholds the Constitution. The America's Pulse Network stands for God, truth, and the America First movement. There is no corporate propaganda, no government spin, just real news, real talk, and real voices fighting for faith, freedom, and the future of this great nation with common sense. Here are some of America's Pulse Network podcasts. Alexandra Levine Live, hosted by Alexandra Levine. Jersey Shore Podcast, hosted by Damon Galdo. The Conservative Corner, hosted by Seth Eisenberg. APN's The Pulse, hosted by Alexandra, Damon, and Seth. So tune into America's Pulse Network on the following social media platforms: X/Twitter, Rumble, Truth Social, Facebook, and YouTube. Join the revolution. Because the pulse of America beats for God and country. America's Pulse Network is for faith, family, freedom, and truth.